Hello, rock and roll community. It is your curriculum director, Barb. It's Tuesday, which means it is our Tuesday Training Tools Day. All right. I hope everyone's having a great week. And can you believe it? We're already at the end of April. Crazy. This month has gone by so fast, but I guess we can say that about every month if we really wanted to. But here we are at the end, our final week of our studies of lesson presentations and how we're giving these lessons of our wonderful materials. And we've spent the month, talking about how we get prepared for the lessons and what can we forecast to make sure that we can be, ready for anything that might go down during the lesson, which would allow us to be present with the children. And we talked about different ways we can make the lessons more engaging and had some conversations around that, the teacher's really that guide and that link between the child and the materials. So I hope that at least some of those resources are useful for you in your current practice, or maybe they are confirming what you're already doing each and every day in your classrooms, which is equally as important to get that acknowledgement and again, that confirmation, and maybe a little a little like boost of yay, that's what I'm doing, right? And you can continue to share that with your teaching team and your learning communities. And today we're just going to talk about some general resources. What I love about our philosophy is that it is flexible. We are Montessori inspired, but sometimes, we can get stuck, or if you're brand new, maybe you don't really know where to start in terms of, gosh, thinking of a lesson can be a little overwhelming. So I just want to share some resources of where you can look for lessons, because that will help you with your lesson presentations. If you come up with it, if you have the idea, you're naturally going to be more excited and invested in that lesson and in that child's learning because it came from you and it has meaning. It wasn't just handed to you, or wasn't, you weren't told to do it. And that's why our model is constructed around this idea that it comes, our lessons come from observation because we want them to be meaningful for both you and the child. So when you're giving that lesson, it doesn't feel forced. It's natural. It's what they want to be learning, because you've been watching them and you know what they need. So let's go ahead. I always like to have my visual, but not this visual. That's not helpful. Okay. All right. Tuesday Training Tools, April 2021. So yes, just going to go review some resources, where to look for inspiration for your lesson ideas. So when it comes time to give that lesson presentation, like I said, you'll be ready. You'll be more confident because it came from you. So again, going back to our model, we're a Montessori inspired blended approach. And I think when we think of Montessori inspired, we're really thinking of the philosophy and the theory of Montessori. So all those trainings that we do in our previous Tuesday training tools, all the trainings that you get at Open Door Montessori, they focus on the philosophy and the theory, not about the actual Montessori materials. And we do this for a couple of reasons. A, it gives us some flexibility. It can be a blended approach. It welcomes in your creativity, your educational background, if you have any, and that came from a different philosophy than Montessori. We want to learn from you too. So we don't want to just, stop it at Montessori. And also with Montessori materials, the reality is you have to be, go through the Montessori training to truly understand how to use the materials. And that sets limits of how we can implement Montessori in our classrooms. So to give it more flexibility, we use Montessori inspired just as the philosophy and the theory. And then we can really apply that to any learning objective or learning material if you follow our process that we have for lesson planning. Okay, so the first step would be to use that learning objective sheet, that PDF that goes over all the infant learning objectives, toddler learning objectives, and preschool learning objectives. The preschool ones are in that calendar that's kind of more month by month because we have to go through more of a scope and sequence with our learning objectives in preschool. They have to learn one thing before they can learn the next. So it's a little more organized. But for our infants and toddlers, the learning objectives are outlined by curricular area. And essentially you can look at that list and say, okay, this is the realm of where I'm focusing. So it gives you some some guidance of what you should be having in your classroom and what those lessons should be focusing on in each curricular area. Okay, so you'll start there and then you'll start thinking of your lessons. You'll get your lesson plan outline out. You'll go through that process with your program specialist or your director. And then once you get that, you get your lesson plan approved and you get your materials, you'll go through your material making checklist. We've talked about this checklist multiple times in Tuesday training tools because this is ultimately the ticket to say you can make any material Montessori inspired by setting it up in a way that's allowing for independence and organization and order for the child to manipulate the learning material on their own. So essentially what this does is it gives you freedom to be creative, and it really lets you meet the needs of the children in your specific learning environments, and it lets you have fun because it's really, it should be fun to be researching these lessons and getting excited about introducing something new in your classroom. And if you follow this process, that's what you get to do. And the power is in your hands and you get to be in control of that. So where do you look? Maybe you're a new teacher. Maybe you've never taught before, or maybe where you taught, you weren't given the opportunity to come up with your own lessons. And again, the freedom of this model is that you don't have to be trained. We'll give you enough resources. Or if you are a seasoned teacher, you get to be as creative as you want. But if you're looking for different ways, there's always good old Pinterest, right? And there's just Pinterest is great because you can type in some keywords and then you get visuals. And I think visuals can be really helpful to just see how a work is set up or how a craft is set up. And what's nice about Pinterest is that you can type in different keywords and then go through the material making checklist to make sure that you're setting up whatever activity or lesson you find on Pinterest to make sure that it's matching our philosophy. Sometimes the activities on Pinterest, if they are from like just a general preschool site, may be more teacher directed, meaning that the teacher's leading the activity or the craft, and it's very product based, or excuse me, not product based. It's very, it's about the end result instead of the process. And we want to make sure that it's really focused on the child can do this independently, that there's it can be set up on a shelf, on a tray or in a basket where they can just go and choose it. And so there are, if you look at those activities, there are ways that you can set it up. Just go through your material making checklist. And you don't have to type in Montessori toddler or Montessori preschool when you go to Pinterest, because chances are there's going to be a lot of very specific Montessori lessons that come up. And again, the limit of Montessori materials is that you do have to be trained to know how to properly give those lessons. So to give more flexibility around your research, you can type in things like preschool learning activities or toddler language activities or infant play ideas or open-ended play. Use different terminology instead of Montessori, so you get an idea and some creativity, and then you get to make it that Montessori style based on our process here at Rock and Roll. Social media. If you're on social media already, it's a great way to kind of just add some accounts, add some hashtags that you follow. And if you're scrolling through, again, it's some great accounts that just show some pictures or show some really good reels or videos of how they, bring construct the lesson and the steps that it takes. And like I said, if you're already scrolling through, it's kind of just, it's there, and then it's in your mind. You can bookmark it, and then you have it as that resource, so you can always go back to it or screenshot it. If you know any good accounts or hashtags that you follow, share them with your teaching team. This is one I follow. This is where I found this. Make sure you're sharing that with everyone in your teaching community. And then use what's provided to you. We actually give you a lot of resources. And I think sometimes, in the busy days that you have, and you can be so focused on just, getting through the day and getting through the week, that we forget that we have a lot of resources that can help you. So we have the curriculum guides that Phil creates that have wonderful cultural lessons that, are such a wonderful resource to help you, supplement the Fiddle Fox materials. Those get sent out, and a fabulous resource for you all. We have our journals that can help you plan, write down some notes, look at your reflections. What did you see from the children that can help you brainstorm some ideas of where you want to take your lessons? We have the curriculum frameworks that highlight different pictures that go, that go across the infant, toddler, and preschool, just sample lessons that again are just there for inspiration. I know curriculum binders have kind of been on hold because of COVID, because I realized that everyone is just, were, brought into a teaching situation that was not ideal. And we are all just in, survival mode in terms of getting um, through our days and, all the COVID regulations. So when we get back to curriculum binders, these are actually a fantastic resource. And this is the whole reason we implemented them in the first place, is that essentially everything in your curriculum are going to live in these binders. And then so if you're a new teacher, you can just go in and open that binder and see what they've been doing the last 6 months. And there will be pictures, and their curriculum outlines will be in there, and their lesson plans. And that's going to be a really good resource for any new teacher who's starting to get a good overview of where the class has, where it's been and where it currently is, and it will all live in that binder. So that should help you give a little more motivation to get the binders up to date. And I know your directors and program specialists over the next couple months will be helping you get those back on track, unless you've been keeping them up, which if you are, great, and use them to for anyone who's new on your team. And then lastly, the most important resource is your team, because your communication between your team members or your program specialist is the most valuable resource, because again, everything comes from you for these lessons. So it's your observations, it's what you're seeing, it's what you think is meaningful. That is really going to be the foundation and everything that these lessons come from. So hopefully, maybe those resources seemed really, you know, uh, really obvious, but if it just helps you to just remember, that there are a million ways that you can be creative and have fun with these lessons. Like we said last week in the Tuesday training tools, if you're not invested, if you're not having fun with this job, then the child is gonna sense that. Not to say that you should be having fun all day, every day, because that's not the reality we're trying to go for. It. That would be impossible. And just not normal. So we totally understand but we want to make sure that your creativity, your personality, your strengths, all of those things are reflected in your learning environments, because that's what this model is about. It's so much of that. So I just always like to take a little time to just, again, reshare those resources, help to get you re-inspired to say, yes, this is my classroom, this is my curriculum, I want to make it mine. And here are a few more things that can hopefully help you along the way if you haven't thought of those before, or if you're newer and you don't really, you just want a different perspective of what does Montessori inspired mean here at our centers and our Nanny Share. And that's what I love. That I love that we have that flexibility to say that we instill the Montessori philosophy and theory a lot of different ways, but we can get creative with our learning materials and present them and prepare them and set them up in our environment in a Montessori way to help the children strive and grow and develop. And it's just so beautiful to watch. So I look forward to hearing how you have about all the different lessons that you come up with. Again, have fun with it. Enjoy those lesson presentations. Learn from your mistakes. Take risks. Do all those things that we encourage all throughout the month of April. And if you have any questions or if you need more support, never hesitate to reach out, because that's why we're here. And we want you to succeed. We want to be a support, and we want you to be enjoying what you're doing, because your work, although I say it all the time, I can't say it enough, your work is so, so important to society. So thank you for all that you do. And like I said, any questions, please let us know. And next week we'll be in the month of May, moving on to the next theme. I can't believe it. I look forward to that, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.